Okay, Tov. Today's daf is daf Beis and Bava Basra as we begin the new Masechet, the last of Nezikin, the first parak, Hashutpin Sharatzu. So yesterday we saw the Mishnah, which basically said that if partners, let's assume two partners, it could be more. Let's say two partners agree to make a mechitza in their yard. Why do they have to agree? Because the yard isn't big enough. We mentioned yesterday, we're going to see it in the Gemara several times, that if the yard is big enough, meaning there's four square amas for each one, besides the four amas leading out of his house, then one can force the other to make a mechitza, to make a division, a wall in there. However, we're talking about when there isn't enough, so they both have to agree. So what do they agree to? It says if they agree, so you make a wall, a physical wall that blocks vision, that blocks overlooking from one to another. That's going to be our discussion. We started talking about it yesterday. What kind of a wall is it? So if it's untrimmed stones that were hewn from the mountain, those are 6 tefachim wide. So each one contributes 3 tefachim from his area. The same thing if it's trimmed stones, then they're 5 tefachim wide. So each one contributes 2.5. If it's bricks, which are 3 tefachim wide, each one contributes 1.5. And if it's half bricks, where you have to put the cement in between, then each one contributes 2 tefachim, a total of 4. And then the Mishnah said the same thing with a garden, and it depends if it's a place that if it's a bikah, which is normally a place, big fields, a grain field where normally people don't. If you want to make you can't force the other person to make a wall. So if you want to, you can make your own and mark it accordingly. So the Gemara said after the Mishnah, we started the Gemara yesterday and got on top of base. The question over here is, what did they agree to? Did they agree to make a wall, or did they agree to divide? So we said in the Havmina, we assume that they agreed to make a wall. So if they agreed to make a wall, because that's what a mechitza is, like we said, the aguda, a wall, like mechitza zakarim is talking about there. Mechitza zakarim gave another case where mechitza meant a wall. So it's mashma, they both agreed to make the wall. But if they didn't want to make a wall, you can't force them. In other words, if they just wanted to divide it and not make a wall, then you hold hezek riya lashmei hezek. The hezek that I do to you by overlooking my area and seeing what you're doing, your business over there. What are you making today for lunch? Oh, that kind of a thing. I'm looking inside there. That's not a hezek. Why? Because if they both agree to a wall. If they didn't agree to a wall, they didn't have to. Okay, that's just because they both agree to a wall. So the Gemara says, well, maybe it means just they agree to make a division. This is like a mechitza, which mechitza can mean a wall. Mechitza could all just mean a division. But the Gemara said, pasuk in Bamidbar, they agreed to half the spoils over there. Half of just means half. And the Mishnah is saying if they agreed to make a half, if they agreed to split it rather, just not even half, it could be 3 or 4 people also. But if they agreed to split it, so the Mishnah is maybe telling you once they agree to split it, you must make a wall. Keep it to Ratsu, then you make a wall because Hezek Shmei Hezek. So the Gemara says, well, if that would be the case, then it shouldn't say Sharatz Las Mechitza. They agreed lachzot to split it in half. Let's split it in half. If that's what it meant. If you mean to say that they just agreed to split it, and therefore the Mishnah is telling us if they agreed to split it, one can force the other one to make a wall because he's makbid on overlooking an hezekriya, then it should say Sharatzu lachzos. What is that? Shalas mechitza, masma that they agreed to make a wall. So if they agreed to make a wall, why did it say Elamai? But I'm just reviewing the Gemara outside that we saw yesterday. So if that's the case, they agreed to make a wall. So why did it say if they agreed to make a wall, this is how you build a wall? Just say build it. They agreed to make a wall. He says, no, if they just agreed to make a wall, you might have said it just get rid with sticks or staves, like a little sticks in the ground. Mashma that you have to build a wall. You have to build a wall because that's a proper wall. However, at this point, we're saying that hezekriya lo shmei hezek. Why? Because it means that they agreed to make a wall. If it just said they agreed to make a division to divide you must make a wall. Oh, why must you make a wall? Because hezekriya shmei hezek. Overlooking is considered damage. But if you say they agreed to make a wall, so they agreed to make a wall. Had they not agreed to a wall, you wouldn't have to make a wall because it could be a lav shmei hezek, and that's what Gemara is discussing now. So we're at the 2 dots, about 10 lines down on Amid base. Bonus also bemsa, build it in the middle. Of course, you build in pshitas, and obviously you build it in the middle. So let's richa. All right, let's richa. The karam chad, the rest of the chaber. What happened was, as we saw, there's not this. The whole chatzer wasn't really big enough that one can force the other to divide it. But one, let's say Ruvain persuaded Shimon to divide it out. The same I might think. that what Shimon can tell Ruvain, listen, you convinced me to build a wall. Kiyas Ratsi, when I agreed to it, Bavira, the airspace. In other words, I agreed to make a thin wall. I agreed to just make it something very simple. It says over here, the Mishnah said, you make it in the middle, and what do you got to do with it? You build it in the middle, and you got to put the bricks, and you got to put stones, and all kinds of stuff you're going to agree. So isn't it obvious? It's no. What happened over here was that one convinced the other. So I might say the one who was convinced can tell the one who convinced them, listen, when I agreed to it, in the airspace. In other words, I put up a very thin, like a paper thin partition, so that you can't see mine, I can't see yours. Fine. But now I'm going to lose 1.5 tvachim, 2 tvachim, 3 tvachim. I'm going to lose a lot of area that I can use, and the area that I can use. But Tashmisha, I didn't agree to give up my area of use. And they know that we don't say that. That we say you have to build a proper wall. If you agreed, you have to build. They agreed to build a wall. You got to build a wall. And he can't say that I just want something very thin. That's the point over here. But we're still saying at this point that they agreed to make a wall. Again, but if they didn't agree to make a wall, if he didn't persuade him to build a wall, then Hezekri Elosh Mehezek. Says the Gemara, Hezekri Elosh Mehezek. Tashma, we're going to try to bring a proof now that Hezekri Ish Mehezek. Because again, we saw the Mishnah. The Mishnah could be interpreted both ways, but until now, we're going to see a different whole gang on tomorrow's Daf, on Daf Gimel. But at this point, we said that they agreed to make a wall. They agreed to make a wall. That means that has agreed. If they hadn't agreed to make a wall, it wouldn't. Then he said, well, maybe it just means they agreed to divide it. But then the lashon of the Mishnah should have said, Shutfin Sharatzu Lachtzot, not Shalatsos Mechitza. If it just meant they wanted to make a division, and once they agree to make a division, you can force them to make a wall because as agree Shmei Hezek, the Mishnah should have said it differently. So at this point, we're assuming that has agree Shmei Hezek. So now the Gemara is going to try to prove otherwise. Tashma b'chein begina. The Mishnah said not only when you're dividing up your chutzner. Again, the chutzner was used every day for cooking, fixing, building, doing stuff. People did all the work that they did in the house was always done in the chutzner. So there you could say maybe Hezekriya. But what about the Gina? What about the Gina? It says over here, Tashma v'chein begina. In the garden also, in the orchard, you can force it to split up too. Why would you split up over there too? What's the Hezekriya over there in the garden? It's not like he's looking at me getting dressed or cooking or doing something that you might consider private. And it says Gina shiny. It's different when it comes to so therefore it must be that Hezekriya is Shmei Hezek. You can't look at my stuff. I don't want you looking at my orchard. The answer is no. Gina shiny is different. Everybody agrees. You may not stand next to somebody else's field where he's growing produce. When it's standing in full growth. In other words, when the grain is fully grown. Why? Because of ayin hara. Explains Rashi. Ayin hara. Because of the ayin hara. Shouldn't damage the ayin hara. The Gemara throughout Shas always assumes that ayin hara can damage. Okay, so therefore that's different. I don't want you to give my produce, I don't want you to see my warehouse, my field. I don't want you to see what I'm growing. You're going to give it an ayin hara. That's different. But that's not Hezekriya. Hezekriya means you're invading my privacy. You're overlooking and looking at my stuff. Nobody wants somebody else to look inside their window.
Is actually the ultimate Hezekriya.
That's right. That's right. It's the ultimate Hezekriya, and it's much stronger. Much stronger. The Hezekriya is simply you invaded my privacy. Here you're really causing damage. I have a b'chein, Tani, but it says b'chein. B'chein, just like you said about dividing up the chutzner, you have to divide up the gina also. So it's b'chein smash for the same reason that there's Hezekriya over here. It says no, b'chein, Tani. I feel because if that's talking about what you must use to divide up the field or divide up the orchard, divide up the chutzner, that's talking about the kind of rock that you use. Tashma, another proof. We're going to see in the Mishnah and Daf Hayomi, not next one. The Mishnah says over there. Let's say you have a wall that fell down. You have to build it dalet amas high. The wall that we're talking about, when the Mishnah talks about whether it's bricks or stone, we're talking about the thickness of it, right? But how high does it have to be? Dalet amas. Dalet amas is tall enough more than most people. It's like 7-8 feet tall. People won't see over there. So it says if it fell down, you got to build it until 4 amas. So what does that mean? Because of Hezekriya, right? Isn't that a proof that there's Hezekriya? It says Nafal Shiny. It's different when it fell down, because if it fell down, that means originally it was agreed to, right? If it fell down, that means there was a wall originally. Why was there a wall originally? Because they agreed to it originally. That somebody had agreed to it before. If they agreed to it before, then obviously you have to rebuild it because they had agreed to it. Doesn't mean though that one could always force the other to make a wall because of Hezekriya. Udakarla, my Karla, obviously it fell over there. So obviously, you there. Of course, you have to rebuild it because it was agreed to originally. So what's the chiddush in that? What was this cotton? It says safe is the safest was necessary over there. So in other words, because it was, you can't force them to build more than that. You only have to. In other words, even if it was 10 amas high before, you only have to build it up to 4 amas because that's also considered a wall. If you build it more than that, that's fine, but it's not necessary. So that's what he means over here. Navel is different because they both agree to it. So if they both agree to it, Nafal Shiny says no safe Rashi says Plumber. Who did not mean Kar? If they agreed to it originally, also you could say that. You don't do more than that. So what's your not only like what was that mission necessary for, and also what was your Havmera? What were you trying to prove that Hezekriya is Shmei Hezek from the fact that it fell down? No, they agreed to it. Maybe Hezekriya is not Shmei Hezek. But if they agree to a wall, they agree to a wall. And if it fell down, they have to rebuild it. Tashma, another proof. Kofan also, all the people in the chutzner, there might be 2, there might be 20 people live in a chutzner. Everybody can be forced. Kofan also, like you have to contribute to the bada bayit. Kofan also, livnos base shav v'delis a chutzner. You can everybody can be forced to build a gatehouse and a door for the chutzner, meaning to make sure that it's surrounded properly by a wall. No, why do you have to do that? Isn't it because of Hezekriya? Shema mina Hezekriya Shmei Hezek. Again, disproving our assumption. Our assumption is that Hezekriya lo Shmei Hezek, and we're trying to prove that Hezekriya is Shmei Hezek. It's like the Rav Shiny, right? That's different because there you're talking about the Chatzer is surrounded by a Rishus Harabim. As the Chatzer, the wall our Gemara is talking about the Chatzer built in a wall built in the Chatzer to separate between one Chatzer dweller and another. There we're talking about building a circumference wall around the whole Chatzer, around the whole area to protect people, Rishus Harabim, from looking inside. That kind of hezek, where a lot of people look in, is definitely considered a hezek. So just like we said that damaging, like you said, ultimate, looking at causing me an ayin hara is the ultimate hezekriya. This is also hezekriya because a lot of people are looking inside. Right, that's different. Rashi says, that's certainly a hezekriya. Of an individual, not. You're saying that hezekriya of an individual, meaning, let's say it's Reuben and Shimon, the 2 Chatzar dwellers, that if one looks at the other, overlooks the other, that's not considered hezek. Tashma ain't cholken as a Chatzar sheba dalar amas. As we said, you only split a Chatzer if there's 4 amas square for each one. That means besides the 4 amas leading out of his door. If there's enough for each one, Cholkin, you split it. My labakosel, doesn't that mean that you got to split it with a wall, indicating that Hezekriya Shmei Hezek is low? Sikas Mialma. There just means you have to split it. You could have used sticks, staves in the ground, where one could easily see over them, and therefore maybe Hezekriya is Lav Shmei Hezek. Tashma, another proof. Achalonos, let's say I build a wall. I build a wall next to my neighbor's. I build my own wall I build a wall near my neighbor's building, and there's windows there. You must keep away dalar. Meaning, if I build a wall and if I sit on my wall, I can look through his window. That's no good. That's no good, right? It's not fair. It's invading his privacy. So, pardon? So we're saying so there he tells you both in vertically and both vertically, meaning I can't build a wall that the top of the wall will be even with his window. It's got to be at least 4 amas higher than his window, probably because the angle then will not allow me a line of sight into his window, or 4 amas below his window. If I'm building, also it's got to be 4 amas away so that I don't darken his window. Like here, people build, right next to, guy's got a window and somebody builds a house, he doesn't even bother getting an easement. He builds his house right next to him, blocks the other guy's window. So it says, if you build a wall, if you build your own wall, Whether it's above or below or next to it, it's got to be Daled Amos. The Tanya law, what's the reason? If you build it above his window, it's got to be at least 4 amas higher than his window, so you can't look down, peep in. Below, if you build it below, it's got to be 4 amas below his window, so you shouldn't stand on your wall and look inside. We connect that opposite the window. In other words, even if you're 4 amas above or 4 amas below, you can't build it next to it, so that you shouldn't darken the swing. So here you see, you are considered about Hezek Kriya, not of a Rabbim, not of a Tzibur, not of a field where it's Ayin Hara, simply for privacy. The Zeka Devai is shiny. Hezek Kriya, there certainly has a guy when you're looking inside my house. We're talking about a chutzner, inside a person's house where he's getting dressed, where he's doing private things. Of course, there's Hezek Kriya that he shouldn't look in his window. We're not talking. Our issue is there has a kriya looking into his chatzer where he's dressed, but he's doing private things there. Tashma, Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel, Gagas Amar Chatzer Chavero. If I have a roof next to your chatzer, my gag is next to your chatzer. You have one chatzer. Let's say you're the only house there. My gag is next to there. The owner of the roof must make a parapet, like a fence, a wall of Daled Amos around his gags, around his roof, so that he shouldn't look inside, see what's going on in the chutzner. So you see over here, it has a great Ishmael. As the Gemara says, "Shani also the Amalei Balachotzer Balagag." There, the Balachotzer is not fair. If the Balachotzer can tell Bagag, I'm always in my chutzner. From 9 to 5, I'm there every day, cooking, building, doing different things. Right? You're not always up on the roof. It's rare that people go up on the roof. Hey, in the Salika, I don't know when you're going up there for us, when you go upstairs there and come onto the roof. It's not enough that I should hide from you, that I should keep my stuff away from you. It's not fair. In other words, if everybody's in a chutzner, so you could say it's all equal. Everybody knows I'm in a chutzner. I'm not getting undressed. I'm not taking a shower in the chutzner. Taking a shower in the house, right? Not taking a chutzner, but I know that you could see my stuff, right? So could be that in a chutzner, we are less private. We don't do such private things. But if you have the ability to see from your roof into my chutzner, that's an unfair advantage. Now, all this was based on the fact that we understood the Mishnah to mean that the two people, let's say there's 2 people in a chutzner, they agreed to make a wall. If they agree to make a wall, so then the Mishnah lists the specifications of the wall. It's got to be such and such thickness, depending on the stone, all that kind of stuff, right? They agreed to make a wall. But if they didn't agree to make a wall, they don't have to make a wall. They can just divide it without making a wall, so if they so agree. Why? Because Hezek Kriya Lav Shmei Hezek. Lishna Achrina, but another Lashon, now the Gemara is going to take the whole thing that we started from after the Mishnah and turn it around. Lishna Achrina, they said, so bro, my mechitza plukta. We assume now. That's what does mechitza mean? They agreed to split it. But again, half of the spoil of the Eidah was such and such. In other words, that the word mechitza, which we said could mean wall, it could also just mean a division. So we're assuming it means a division. The kiv the ratzu, once they agree to make a division, if they agree to make a division, again, why do they have to agree? Because it's a small chatzer. If it's a big enough chatzer, then one can force the other person to make a division. But if it's a small chatzer, they have to agree to make a division. Once they agree to make a division, once they agreed, then one can force the other to put up a wall because of Hezek Kriya, Alma Hezek Kriya, Shmei Hezek. Says Gemara, no, maybe it's reverse. We're going around the other way. Maybe mechitza means they agreed to make a wall, right? If mechitza there, it means a wall that broke open. Omelo, the owner of the crops, of the grain, could tell the owner of the vineyard, Gedor, build your wall up so that your vines should not ruin my grain by causing it to be climb. He told me, Nifritza, broke again, Omelo Gedor. And he told him to do it again. This Yash, and then he gave up. The owner of the vineyard was negligent, right? He just neglected it. Anyway, he didn't do it. Raise a kiddush. He turned it into kalayim. He has to pay for it. Right. So maybe mechitza means a wall. Like it says with it, mechitza sakerim. The other mechitza sakerim means a wall. So mechitza can mean a division. We just wanted to divide it, or it can mean a wall. The time of the Ratsu, like we said on the base here, that maybe it means a wall, and they agreed to make a wall. Hello, Ratsu. If they didn't agree to a wall, so because Hezek Kriya is Lav Shmei Hezek Kriya Lav Shmei Hezek says no. If that would be the case, if you say that they agreed to make a wall, why did it say they build a wall? You already said they agreed to make a wall. Some of us should say it should say bonoso. Elamai. So let's go back to the first way. What does it mean? Sharatsu lasos mechitza. They agreed to make a division. Elamai plukta means a division. Why did it say they agreed to make a mechitza? Sharatsu lasos meboile. That's what it should have said. And because of this reason, on Amid Bays, right? Amid Bays at the top of Amid Bays, we said, oh, because of that, since if it just meant they agreed to divide it should have said Sharatsu lachsos. Why did it say Sharatsu lasos mechitza? Means that they wanted to make a wall. Now the Gemara says no. The Gemara gives a different answer. If they just agreed to divide it, Sharatsu lachsos could have just said they agreed to divide. Why did it say they agreed to make a division? The answer is because people speak that way. Let's make a machloka. Not let's make a machlokas. Let's make a division. Right? He says, he says, why didn't it say, it should have said they agreed to divide it? Well, people sometimes say, let's make a division. Sometimes people could say, let's divide it. Or people could say, you have a pie here, let's make a division. People talk that way. So that's what it means. So it means simply they agreed to make a division. If they agreed to make a division or to divide it, then the Mishnah said they have to make a wall. Why? Because it has a Kriyash Mehezek. So the Gemara says, he has a Kriyash Mehezek. Ma'ira Ratsu. Why do you say they agreed to? I feel Ratsu, even if they didn't agree. Even if the people didn't agree to make it, one can force the other. Has agreed. You're looking at my stuff. You're looking at my food, my table, my children, whatever. Like we've explained before, our Mishnah speaking about where the chatzar is not big enough for one to be able to force it. In other words, it doesn't have a basic standing rule that this chatzar can be split up. It's too small to split up. If they agree, that's different. Mike Mashmon. So what's the chiddush in there? Even if there's no automatic rule that they could be divided, if they wanted to, though, if they agreed to, they can split it. Tanina, we're going to see this on a later Mishnah. Where's the later Mishnah? Tells us over there, right? On Yud Aleph. It says over there, Amosai, when do you make this when this man changed name Rotzim? If they don't agree, in other words, what's the rule for dividing up a chutzner? If it's big enough means 4 amas for each one besides the area by the door. If they both don't agree, one can force the other because it's standing to be divided. But if they both agree, I feel they can split it there too. So what's the chiddush in our Mishnah? If they both agree to divide it, they have to make a wall. Why? Because it has a griyash mehezek. Right? So he said, what's the chiddush in that? If they both agree, what's the chiddush? Even if they don't want to know, it's speaking about where the mission doesn't have the chatzar is not big enough, and therefore they both have to agree. So what's the chiddush there? We already said that. The next mission said it specifically. You're saying that our mission is speaking about where chatzar is not big enough, but if they both agree, you could do it. Well, the next mission says that, not the next mission. The mission Yalf says that for favorish. Amosai, when can one force it if it's not when they both don't want to? I was manchish name Rotzim. If they both agree, I'll feel about this mekan chokin. His email over there, it doesn't tell you need a wall. That mission just says if they both agree to split it, even though it's small, or they all agree, however many people it is. If it's 2 people, if they both agree, they can split it. Fine, you can split it, but maybe you don't have to make a wall. Maybe you can just make some sticks. Therefore, our mission says over here, kosel. You have to make a wall. So let's just say our mission. If our mission is teaching you the basic idea that if the chutzner is not big enough to split, but they both agree to split it, you have to make a wall because if it has agreeya, they both agree to split it, and they have to split it with a wall, right? So what do you need the next mission for? What do you need the mission Yadala for? That later Mishnah. Let's have a listen now. The answer is safe. You need the safe over there. Why? Because the safe it says Kisvei Kodesh. If it's talking about holy scrolls, in those days the books were all in scrolls, right? It's bizarre. You don't split. You don't take a Sefer Torah and split it down the middle. If 2 people own it together, you don't split it, even if it's a Sefer Nevi'im, whatever it is. That you don't do. So that's why you needed the next mission there because it specified that case. But the truth is this: that you see that if 2 people agree to make a split, to make a division. You can force them. They can be forced to make it with a wall. Obviously, if there's only 2 people and they say we don't mind, we're brothers-in-law, we don't mind looking at one another. There's no hesitation there. If they're mochel, they're mochel. But
what happens if one wants to go to the wall and the other one doesn't? And the guy still build the wall?
Yeah. If not only they can force them. If they agreed to make the wall, if they agreed to divide it, we're saying now, if they agreed to make a division, I don't like this anymore, let's divide up the chutzner. You take your half, I'll take my half. If they agreed, then one can force the other to build a wall, and the other one has to contribute to it also. So the Gemara now says, right, that's the point of our Mishnah. If the chutzner is big enough, even if they don't agree, if one wants to split it, he can split it and force the other guy to make a wall too, because it's standing to be divided. But here our Mishnah is speaking about where it's not big enough. If it's not big enough, they both have to agree. But what do they agree to? Do they agree to make a wall? Or do they agree to divide it? So we're saying now, on Amid Beis yesterday, we said they agreed to make the wall. If they agreed to make the wall, they say you have to build a wall. But if they didn't agree to make a wall, you wouldn't have to build a wall because Hezek Losh Hezek. Now we're saying, no, they agreed just to divide it. If they agreed to divide it, you can force them to make a wall because Hezek Hezek. So the Gemara says, so now you skip there's a parenthesis there which covers about 15 lines. We skip that. It's really covered in the next piece and in the previous piece. The Gemara says, if our Mishnah is speaking about a case where there is no din chalukah, meaning it's not big enough automatically to split, they have to agree to it. What if they agree? What are you saying now? If they both agree to divide it, then one can force the other to make a wall. So you can say, okay, I don't agree to that. I agreed to divide it, but I don't want to make. I didn't agree to a wall. Just guy who's agreed, I changed my mind. You know, if they agreed, my habit. In other words, the chatzer is not big enough to divide normally. But if they both agreed, you can force them to make a wall. I didn't agree to make a wall. He says you can force them to make a wall. So what? I agreed. I changed my mind. If I agreed on the understanding that I didn't have to build a wall, but if I have to build a wall, I don't want to do it. Let him retract. Make a kinyan. They made a formal agreement, like they hand like a handkerchief, like you hand it over a kinyan sudar chalipin that we agreed. So he couldn't be my have kinyan farm. What did they exchange? There was no kinyan. What was the kinyan of? It was just an agreement of words. Words don't mean anything, right? Dvarim ba'alma don't mean anything. That's just dvarim ba'alma. Simply words. I changed my mind. So they agreed already. In other words, they shook on it and they agreed that you take the east, I'll take the west, or you take the north, I'll take the south. They agreed. They showed the area. Rav Ashi says even more. How do you cone a karka? Kesef, shtar, or chazaka. Kesef means cash. Chazaka, kesef. Shtar means a document. Chazaka means I show ownership. I lock it up. I walk around the perimeter. I display ownership. So over here, that's what happened over here. They made a kinyan. So our Mishnah, the way we interpret now, is the final maskan is our Mishnah means this. If it's a small area, not big enough to automatically divide, and I can't force you to divide it, but we agreed to divide it, that means Ashifin Sharatsu Lasas Machitza, they agreed to divide it. Once they agreed to divide it and they made a kinyan and they agreed, then Reuben can force Shimon to make a proper wall because as agreed, Shimon has it. Then the Mishnah went on to say, if they agreed, if the minhag is to build it with untrimmed rocks, let's call it rocks, untrimmed rocks, that's gvil. Gvil, avnei lo mishapsi. What are they? So it depends. Is it gvil? There are 4 different kinds. Is it gvil? Is it guzes, which are trimmed, or is it kinds of bricks or half bricks? It says gvil is avnei mishap. Those are rocks, taken from the mountain. You dug up the rocks. You carved them. You carved them out. And that are untrimmed. They haven't been smoothed out. They haven't been trimmed. Gazes avim shafek. Gazes are the same rocks that have been trimmed, so they're smaller. So instead of 6 tvachim wide, they're 5 tvachim. Sif kolei lavanim by Shlomo HaMelech. It's good, but basically kolei lavanim requires all these precious stones. Kamidas gazes like the measure of the gazet. Kfisana arche are half bricks. Levainin livni are bricks. Amalei Rabba, great Rabba Rashi. In my dikvul avnei. How do you know that gvil is avnei? How do you know it means untrimmed rocks? So why are they bigger? Because because of the projection of the rough edges. That's why it's a tefach more. Because we said these are 6 tefachim wide, so each one has to contribute 3 tefachim. And if it's trimmed stones, then it's only 5 tefachim wide. Each one has to contribute 2.5. Dilma palga the gazasu. Maybe it means half. Maybe it means half of the meaning. Maybe the when we say gvil, it means a half of a trimmed stone. How much would that be? 2.5, right? So why do you need 6? There, the high tefach yisera lebeni arba. That's for the cement between the rows. In other words, like we saw in the case of the bricks, if you have half bricks, the whole thing is a tefach wider. Why? Because you have to put a tefach of cement between the two half bricks. So maybe here also, maybe gvil does not mean untrimmed stones. Maybe it means half of a trimmed stone, and the extra tefach is for the cement between them. Like we said, kvisin or arche. Kvisin means half bricks. Levain are livni, full bricks. Why does half bricks take more width than full bricks? Levain because the cement between the rows. How do you know that kvisin arche? How do you know that kvisin means half bricks? Minola. We have such a tradition. It's a tradition. Economics, some say the reverse. Ravashi, how do you know kvisin means half bricks? And you have extra tefach between them, because we said for half bricks you need a 4 tefachim wide wall, and for full bricks only 3 tefachim. Why? That's because of the tefach of cement between the two half bricks. Maybe kvisin means bricks that are not smoothed out. Maybe that's what it means. Maybe it's for the extra projection of the rough edges. Maybe it means bricks that have been trimmed. The answer is just like you say, gvil means hewn stones that are untrimmed. It goes off the mashifim. Maybe it means the same thing. So maybe archi also means doesn't mean half bricks, right? How do we know that it means the bricks? Or kvisin? How do we know that kvisin means half bricks? Maybe it means bricks that are untrimmed. How do you know? How do you know? How do we know that gvil means rocks that are untrimmed? It's a tradition. We have a tradition. Whenever you're talking about you have to put cement in between the rows. In other words, this is going in the width, but it means between this part of the width and that part of the width is a tefach, because you always have to put in a sevach. That's only for using cement. If you're using pebbles and other garbage, you need more because they're not as strong. So he says, you see from over here, because he says that if you're talking about half bricks need an extra tefach. So you see, what's the extra tefach for? The mortar, for the cement. That's the standard for building. That's only if it's cement, but if it's pebbles, you need more. You can have some say, the tefach you need is only if you use small pebbles and straw and things like that. On the patina, if you're using cement, you don't need that much. So the Gemara now says, Lememra, do we mean to say that what? The beguzis, now, guzis was the preferred way of building, because that's real rock. That's better than bricks. Bricks, Einachnami Tosa says, is 3 tefachim. And how high, by the way, how high is the wall? We've said that's 4 amas. It's got to be at least 4 amas high for Hezekriya. And the Mishnah says that later on. So it's mashma over here that guzis, which is how much? Guzis, which is 5 tefachim wide, called alamas gova. In other words, whenever you have a height of 4, what's the standard so that the wall shouldn't fall down? We're talking here about a wall that's 4 amos high, right? 4 amos high. And how wide is the wall? 5 tefachim if you're using guzis. True, with bricks it's even less, but bricks aren't made for long term. We're talking about for long term, if you have a width of the trimmed stones, the stones that are of a width of 5 tefachim will hold up a wall that's 4 amos high. That means that they say, remember the guzis called al an amos go, but whenever you talk about a height of 4 amos, if its width is 5 tefachim, it'll stand. It'll be established. It'll stay up. Elo lokoi. So that's what that means. You need to maintain a height of 4 amos. You need a width of 5 tefachim. Amatraxin. What about the amatraxin? The amma partition between the kodesh and the kodesh kodeshim. This is going to lead us into a long discussion about the Beis Hamikdash and about the times of the temples. Amatraxin David Gvoat Twasin. That was Shlomo's Beis Hamikdash. The partition between the kodesh and kodeshim was 30 amos. David Gvoat Twasin amasa. Lavi Pusi El Shesh was only 6. So if you say you need a ratio of 5 tefachim wide to 4 amos high, so how did 6 tefachim wide hold up 30 amos? Right? because it was only six tefachim wide. How would that hold up 30 amas if you need a ratio of 5 tefachim to 4 amas? How was 30 amas in height maintained by a width of only 6? Become and it stood. Once you're talking about more than 5, you had an extra tefach, it'll stand. Okay, so that's one answer. The Gemara is going to give another answer. The last Tosfos points it out. Could have said that's different because it's not freestanding. The wall between the Kodesh and Hashem had a ceiling on top, and the ceiling held it in place too. It wasn't a wall that just stood by itself and had just airspace on top of it. There was a ceiling with plaster that held it in place. That's one answer. Or Mikdasheni, my time of and Amatraxin. So he says, if that's the case, why didn't they make that Amatraxin in the second base? I mean, they use curtains over there. It says Kikoi bitlasim. Kikoi with 30 amas it could stand. Tfei lo koi. How do we know that in the second base of Mikdash was much higher? Right? The Siv Godol Yekvarabai says, the honor of the second one will be greater than the honor of the first one. This is talking about the one before this. Rav Shmuel, one said that it was greater in structure. When he says greater, that the second was greater than the first one, it just means in length. Why? Because the first base of Mikdash lasted 410 years, the second one 420 years. The Isalah Isal, they're both true. The second one that was built by Horus was much greater in beauty and greater in structure, was much larger, and it also lasted longer. So we'll pick it up from here tomorrow. And we got to the top line. Pick it up tomorrow, and tomorrow we'll try to get into Shabbos Shop, which is a very long daf. Have a good day, everybody. Kol Tuv.